We only have two bills that we're going to consider today, and as y'all know, we're kind of in the short row, so if anybody has any questions or any amendments or any input in these bills, we need to hear them right away and do whatever it takes to get them perfected. I want to remember all of you to turn your cell phones off, since I think I was the only one that didn't do it last time, but I got mine off this time. And I do welcome those of you that are in the internet audience to our committee meeting. This is a House Game, Fish, and Parks Committee. We'll begin by pretty good beginning there, I think. But, we'll begin by taking up House Bill 1490 by Representative Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to bring before this committee House Bill 1490 by substitute. This is a consumer protection bill, and amongst other things, but it's a little far-ranging in that it offers consumer protection when it comes to the title on boats, and protects the consumer on boats as far as the ownership. It also will start, Mr. Chairman, in Section 1 where it pertains to the opening up some of our lakes and provide new opportunities and benefits for fishermen and boaters in some of our state parks. And if we have any questions there, I see Ms. Kelly is here from DNR, who is in charge of our state parks, and we have some questions. I'm sure she could be invaluable in her addressing some of those questions.
Let me interrupt you right there and say, Becky, I would appreciate it if you would comment on this a little bit, since I think that you brought this to Representative Burns, or is it some legislature, and you might do a better job than even we could up here trying to explain what we're trying to do.
No doubt, that'd be acceptable to me.
Okay, and also didn't Representative Jenkins bill?
He also has a part of this team.
Okay.
On the tail end of it.
And we'll let him explain his part of it.
That'd be good.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we'll certainly ask Becky when she to enlighten us on that portion of it. The portion that I'll deal with then is, and Representative Jenkins will deal with the portion that he's involved in. The bill, like I say, is a consumer protection bill. Georgia is the #1 state in the country as far as stolen boats. Not a good position to be in. We have an awful lot fewer boats in Florida, but we have a higher number of stolen boats. And so this legislation would simply deal with hull identification numbers on vessels. In current law, boats and vessels are under a catch-all section that includes sewing machines, bicycles, and vacuum cleaners. So we needed to do something to enable the department to enforce the laws as it pertains to stolen boats and making sure that all our watercraft have identification numbers. Right now, we don't have adequate protection for our consumers from fraud and theft, and we just want to. This is what this legislation deals with, to address those problems and make sure that our consumers are adequately protected. If there's any questions about the identification part of the bill, it's consumer friendly. The department will come out if you have a boat that's homemade that does not have a number on it. The department will be willing to send out one of the rangers and come out and make sure that your boat is properly identified. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that this bill does not impose any unnecessary imposition on the citizens of this state, but it would be a first-class protection for them and their rights to own their watercraft, and make sure that we protect them with their rights to own their watercraft. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them. That's all I have. Yes, sir.
Representative Moses.
Representative Burns. How is this identification mounted on the boat to make sure that that's not removed and replaced with another number? Is there a certain way that they have to be mounted?
Various ways, but I guess I could probably let's do this. That would probably be better to have a Colonel.
It's Colonel Terry West, Chief of Law Enforcement. I'll be glad to answer that question and any others pertaining to this. Currently, manufacturers are required by federal law to put a hull ID number on every vessel. Every manufacturer has their own number, so we know who that manufacturer was. It can trace back to them. It's on the stern of the boat, on a tag, and it's also hidden on several areas on the boat, just like an automobile is. It's etched in other areas, so if they take that first one off, they can see we can find it elsewhere. Homemade vessels, we make them up ourselves. We will assign the number if it's a homemade vessel, one that an individual has made himself for use. And it does require a hull ID number. It requires one now to be registered. So this law is not changing that at all. It's just codifying the fact that they do have to have it, and our officers, if someone calls us up and says, I've got a homemade vessel, I need a hull ID number for it so I can register it, what we do now, if they're close to one of our offices, we'll have them come by our office if it's convenient for them. If not, we'll send one of our officers out to their house who will inspect the boat, document the size, the width, all the dimensions of it that we need, and then assign the appropriate hull ID number that they can attach. We let them attach it. And it's attached to that boat forever. If it goes missing, if he sells it and the next owner says, well, this boat doesn't have a hull ID number on it, then we can trace it back. We know that boat was assigned one. So I hope that answered the question there. And any others that come up with this bill, it is kind of complicated and lengthy, but I would like to say, as Representative Burns pointed out, it is consumer protection. It's everything. This is not making anything new happen. Everything that's we're doing now with regard to hull ID numbers and tracking them and registrations, we'll continue to do exactly the same. This law simply moves it into Title 52 with vessels and gives us more clear-cut authority to pursue violations of people that do try to steal these vessels and remove the hull ID number and resell them.
Colonel West, while you're up there, I know I had a homemade, like a garden lawnmower trailer, and it wasn't manufactured by a particular industry or anything. It's a homemade one, and I had to do the same thing that you said, get a vehicle ID number from the tax office, and use rivets to put it on my piece of equipment. But I also had to have a law enforcement officer, and I guess probably a DNR officer could do it, verify that it was attached on there. Are you verifying, not only bringing them the ID number, but y'all are verifying that it's been actually applied to the vessel?
Yes, sir, we are. We do that before we even will let them register the vessel. That's what we do. We assign them their number, verify that they attach it to it. We make the documentation and all. Then they can get the vessel certified, get it registered, and put numbers on it and operate it.
Did you have a question? Okay, good.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions of the committee before Colonel West sits down? Okay, I don't see any more.
I want to make sure, just clarify, this doesn't impose any additional restrictions. It really just, like I say, codifies what we're doing now, correct?
That is correct. And as an example, we are right now requiring that if someone submits an application to us to register their vessel and they don't have a hull ID number on their application, then we won't issue the registration anymore. That hasn't always been the case. We started that about 2 years ago, and that's a federal requirement. We were a little lax in what we had done before, but we're correcting that now. And as an example, we recently had a fellow that called our office and said, I want to register my vessel I've bought. I can't find a hull ID number on it. First we try to tell him where to look. He comes back, it's not on there. And he lived close by, so he brought it out to our office there in Social Circle. Well, our officers that work across the street from our headquarters there, all of our officers are trained. They know where to find the hidden numbers, and they looked underneath the hull and found the manufacturer assigned hull ID number on this vessel. The original one had been removed. It was a stolen vessel. And we uncovered a stolen vessel right there by simply, he brought his boat by our office. Now, this law makes a provision in those instances that if that happens to someone and it's unknown to them that they are in possession of that stolen vessel, that they do not lose that vessel, that the action would be taken against the person who altered it and sold it illegally. But it does protect the owners who may have unknowingly purchased a vessel or come into ownership of it without knowing that it was stolen or the hull ID was altered.
What would be your recourse on that person who altered it? I mean,
that we would turn that over to another agency for investigation, Mr. Chairman, because we don't do theft investigations. The GBI or a local sheriff's office would then say, here's a stolen boat, and they would handle the investigation and bring charges if they could make an arrest.
And that's where the penalty section would come in that we were discussing prior to the meeting?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And is that, I think it was said that was consistent with automobiles? Is that
yes, sir.
The same penalty? This
entire code section mirrors the VIN numbers for automobiles. It's called a hull identification. We call it a HIN number for vessels. So the penalty phase, every part of this mirrors identically the process for automobiles.
Any other questions? How would, without this law, without this bill, what would we do? What would you do different as an agency than you do right now? I mean, what does this bill allow you to do?
This bill will allow us to, I would say, it helps clarify both to the consumer, to the public, that lots of times, I guess criminals aren't smart enough to read the laws, but if you flip back over here on page 3 of this bill, that's section 2, that's all we have to use right now. And as Representative Burns pointed out, we would still follow the same process we're using now, Mr. Chairman, but it would be under this one paragraph, it's code section 16-9-70. It's a catch-all. As you see here, we're even proposing to amend this to include the words vessel as defined in code section 52-7-3. Currently, that's not even in there, and it's a vessel is just implied to be in this paragraph along with radios, pianos, sewing machines, washing machines, etc. All of these equipments and pieces of equipment come with manufacturer IDs on them, and it's already a criminal violation to remove them. This just clarifies it as it's done with vehicles, and the reason we're doing it is because, as Representative Burns pointed out, unfortunately, the FBI statistics show that we're #1 in the nation in stolen vessels, and it's something that is in our purview. We deal with the vessels, so this will help us clarify both the intent of the law, the seriousness of it, and when we start giving it some attention, it makes it easier to get it prosecuted when you can take to the DAs and the solicitors and say, here it is in Title 52, it is a vessel law. We're still able to do it today, but it's a little bit longer loop to go back and show them where we're coming from with pulling it out of this section here with sewing machines and all.
As current law exists, somebody would report a stolen boat, and y'all would then have to turn it over to GBI or the sheriff's office right now. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that would not change either.
Right.
What this would do, though, is it just clarifies those that we run up on when the guy calls us and says, I want to register my boat, and your registration unit won't do it because I don't have a hull ID number on it. And then we check into it and we find it. Then we've got some recourse against that guy, whoever removed that number and sold that boat. That'll be a little cleaner and more efficient than it currently is.
Well, if y'all don't investigate thefts like that, then there really is only recourse y'all got as far as helping find the stolen boats, I guess, wouldn't it be?
That is correct. The other thing this law does is it makes it a violation to be operating a vessel without one. So now, as it currently stands, our officers, we check a lot of boats in the summertime out on the water. It's real easy to check for a hull ID number. We don't now because it's not in law clearly in Title 52. But now our officers can glance, and if that hull ID tag's not on the back like it's in the windshield of a vehicle, then that's a red flag that something could be wrong right there and would warrant further investigation. As it currently stands, that's not a law, not codified in Title 52, so our officers don't even look at it.
But if it is registered, it would have to have a whole ID number, I guess a correct one, wouldn't it?
It does now, Mr. Chairman. I have to say in the past we did allow a lot of vessels to be registered without hull ID numbers. Mm-hmm. We're correcting that now. That's an administrative process we're undertaking.
Well, I think it's a good bill. I don't want to see us getting in a position where where we're getting a lot of people being aggravated by the fact that y'all looking for hull numbers on the boat. So, and I know you understand that.
Yes, sir, and I can assure you that our officers are not going to do that. It's a simple. You can see it on the back of the boat as you pull up to it if it's there. Okay. Just like on a vehicle, y'all know where it is right in front of the driver in the window. An officer can look down and see it. Yeah. You can look and see it on a vessel too.
Does that apply down to John boat size boats also, aluminum boats?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's typically right there on the back.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, Representative Breyer.
Colonel, what percentage of the boats out there now do you think maybe don't have a number?
Don't have a hull ID number on them?
Number now.
Boat registrations are a 3-year process, so a little over 2 years ago, we got our license unit. We told them, do not register another vessel that submits application without a hull ID number. And they agreed to do that. So we're a little over 2 years into the process now. It's pretty substantial. I'd say 20% is my guess, Representative, and that's just my best guess. I don't have any numbers to support that. I know the whole process it was a much greater undertaking than we thought when we started it. It's eat up a position of mine for 2 years handling it. But we're 2/3 of the way through it. So in another year we would have gone through the whole cycle, and we should see very few applications being submitted without whole ID numbers on them then.
As a boat owner and someone who's had property stolen from them before of this nature, I really applaud the department for bringing this legislation up.
Well, thank you. It is a protection type of legislation because it's one thing we found out is if a boat gets registered in Georgia, then that owner can take it to another state and get it titled. So it's easy we were becoming known as an easy place for a stolen boat to come running in. They'd run them into our state, register them, didn't even have to list a whole ID number, get the registration on it, carry it to Florida and get it titled, and then it had a clean title on it. So this will help us in that regard, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Colonel West. Any further comments from the committee members? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Yes, sir. There is one correction, Mr. Chairman. Brief correction that needs to be made on the last page. I'd like for hopefully that we will get favorable consideration on this bill, but on the section B, 52-7-7.3, that needs to be removed. That is not pertinent to this bill. 52-7-7.3, just a technical correction.
The end of line 7.
It's end of line 7, yes, sir.
Do you want to offer an amendment that would remove this from the committee substitute then?
Yes, sir. So make a motion that we amend the committee substitute to remove 52-7-7.3 from line 7. Make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
A second. There's motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No? Okay, the ayes have it. It stands amended. Now, what's as far as House Bill $14.90 by substitute. What, do I hear a motion? Is the motion do pass by substitute as amended?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second? Is a second, by Representative Warren. Any further discussion?
You need to know anything about, Mr. Chairman, anything about the lakes back on page
Yeah.
10?
I'm sorry, I overlooked that.
Yes, sir.
If you, before we vote on it, will you,
So we
will
have,
you talk about that just a little bit?
yeah, it's a big brief. We had a very short bill that
Sorry about that.
actually restricts the use of motors and operation of houseboats on lakes listed below, and these boats cannot exceed 30 feet 6 inches in length. And one reason being, Lake Burton, Sea Lake, Lake Raven, Lake Tuglow, Toledo Falls Lake, and Lake Yonah are small lakes, basically. In addition, the population has increased tremendously on those lakes, and pollution is always a concern that people have. So it's being restricted to 30 feet 6 inches in length, and that'll cut down a little bit on large boats.
Thank you. Becky, did you have anything to add to that? I'm sorry that I overlooked that. We
Mr.
talked
Chairman.
about
I have no comment.
it. Any discussion on that part of it before we? Okay, we have a motion and a second that House Bill 1490 do pass by committee substitute as amended. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. We'll report it out, do pass. The second bill we have for discussion today is House Bill 1567, and I apologize to the committee I put this bill in, and of course it's a late hour, and I was going to ask that the rules be suspended, and the speaker wanted to go ahead and take care of it. So anyhow, I didn't give anybody else's signatures on it to see if I had some more support out there. But it was kind of a rushed deal. It was brought to me by CCA, who wanted to see some recognition for the spot-tail bass or red drum or channel bass, or they're known by several different names. But what this does is it names the red drum as official state saltwater fish. Now, I don't know how the leadership is going to, he made some comment when we suspended the rules that he didn't really want to see any more state symbols, and it may not have a chance of passing, I don't know, but there seems to be a lot of support for this red fish. Those of you who fish on the coast know that it's probably one of the most sought-after fish that we have down there. They're good eating fish. They are good fighting fish, and I think they deserve this title. But I'll leave it up to y'all for your discussion, and if any of y'all have any comments on it, or would like to ask any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them at this time.
Can I be recognized and make a motion, Mr. Chair?
Let's see if there's any discussion first,
Okay.
and then we'll see where we're at. Well, as y'all know, the red drum is going to be the subject of an initiative we got to try to provide more for our coastal area, and I think it was well thought up enough to do that, and I think that kind of adds to the importance of this fish. The Peach State Red Initiative is what I'm talking about, and it we use hatchery reared red drum and restock them in the Wausau Sound to begin with, I think it is. But I think they've done a good job too this is just to bring further recognition to the importance of it. Is there any discussion, any questions? And I'll recognize Ms. Teague then for motion.
I move do pass on this bill, please.
Move the House Bill 1567 do pass.
Yes.
Is there any comments or questions from the committee? Is there a second? There's been a motion and a second that House Bill 1567 do pass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. and we will report that out with a do pass. And that's all the business we had today. I thank all of you for coming, and I thank the committee members for being here. I know it's actually a day off, and it's late afternoon. I know you've been busy, so appreciate you coming, and I will adjourn the meeting this time.